What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports MLB Swing for the Fences show. We are here breaking down the 13 game, I believe, MLB slate tonight. And things are starting to trend in the right direction. The weather's heating up. We're starting to see some runs being scored. So it's positive outlook, I think, on MLB as a whole. We have some solid pitching tonight. We have some pretty solid offenses, and we have a guy getting called up for the first time that appears to be pretty solid as well. So we'll cover it all here on this show. As always, on Friday, I'm joined by DC and my guy JT Hayes. We'll start with JT. What's going on? Overall thoughts here, JT, on this Friday night slate?
Yeah, like you said, we're finally starting to see some offense. That's been pretty exciting. A lot of runs scored on yesterday's daytime slate. A lot of runs scored on Wednesday. I'm hearing something else. Yeah, so it's good. So we are, like you said, a lot of games tonight, 13 game slate on a Friday night, and a ton of options, including some interesting lower priced pitching options that are on this slate, I think, going to be low owned, but because their offense is in such great spots and some of those higher priced offenses, the Dodgers, the Yankees, even to some degree, you could make a case for the Braves and the Mets. I think you can make a case that you could spend up at one and go down at the other. So we'll get into all that, and it's just good to be here with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about this pitching slate is there's guys, I think in just basically every tier. We have the top end guys that we like to spend on. There's guys in the middle, and I think there's cheap guys we can go to too. So I like slates like that a ton, especially when you have a 13 game slate where there's a ton of offenses. It makes it fun to kind of mix and match. DC, bring you into the mix here, and talk to me about your overall thoughts here on the slate. There's some technical. It's Friday, and JT's on the show, so that means one thing: DC's technical difficulties will continue. JT, I'm not sure if you're aware, but he blames you for this, correct?
I actually laughed because I heard you guys talking when I was coming into the Zoom room, and I'm like, all right, if his shit goes out now, he's either just sabotaging it to make me look like the bad guy. I'm doing nothing. I'm completely innocent here.
He said we don't have you. We got nothing. You're the guilty party apparently. So it's all your fault. Somehow you are sabotaging the connection for DC. This time though, the internet looks good. Just the sound is out. Do you know anything about this? The one guy we will touch on him at when we get to pitcher, but this guy for the Angels. Name is Chase Silseth. Is that how you pronounce it?
Sleestack, like from Land of the Lost. I think it's Silseth. It looks like. Don't worry, Hoop. You're saying it the right way. We know how this goes, right? However way you want to say it, no one's going to question you. And
you know the parents, so I mean, we whatever way we go with, we're good.
I haven't met them yet because he's a newcomer onto the scene. I will say one parent I would like to meet. A friend of mine met was Cody Bellinger's mom, but that's another story. This kid, Silseth, big strikeout numbers in the minor leagues. He gets perhaps the best matchup in baseball that he could have in the Oakland A's, who are they don't have much isolated power at all. They strike out 28% of the time to right-handed pitchers. He's going to be pitching in Oakland in that huge park, and he's just 5,500 on DraftKings. So with these higher priced offenses, and oh, by the way, on a 13 game slate where I think the trend is starting here. And the way I heard you talking, Hoop, I think we expect to see some offense tonight. Yeah. I think it's looking to me like a pretty interesting way to go.
You guys hear me, JT?
Yeah, there we go.
There we are.
I have no idea. I had a 2 hour.
Just blame JT. It's simple. You have the out. I mean, he's on the show. You can just blame him.
But okay, I think we're good to go. Sorry, but I just had to jump in there. Sorry.
I know you're going to have thoughts on this kid because you are a guy who knows a lot about these kids coming up. You're really, and honestly, I mean this, an expert in the farm systems and the better prospects here. But this kid looks to me, when I looked at him this afternoon, I immediately said, I kind of hoped he wasn't 4,000 flat on DraftKings because I figured that would elevate ownership. I'm really happy with his 5,500 price
Yeah.
point. I think the matchup could not be better. And in this situation, something that we talked about on the Sweet Spot pod last week, Hoop, that you were on, is talking about how on some of these slates where there is expected to be a little bit more offense, you could go 3-3-2, 4-2-1-1. And if you wanted to get some of those higher price bats that are in really good spots tonight, you could pay up at 1, take this kid in this great spot, making his major league debut. And everyone knows I don't usually get on these kids in their first start, but I think this is different. I think that might be the way to go tonight.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Yeah, DC, I'll toss it over to you, and we'll just hop into the pitcher talk, and talk about him, and then any other cheaper guys that you're interested in. We'll start at the bottom tier today instead of the top tier.
Yeah, briefly on the slate, I really do like these big slates, especially for baseball. Like for NBA, you get a 13-game slate. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but for baseball, you get not only like more options, more stacks, pitchers to choose from, but it also opens up strategy, right? Where you can go, because you have so many options, you can usually find 2 cheap pitchers and pay up for all the bats if you want to do that. On this slate, there you could certainly pay up for 2 stud pitchers and go that direction, or 1 cheap pitcher and one expensive pitcher, like JT said. So all kinds of strategy. I think there'll be plenty of good offenses, pitchers up and down the pricing spectrum that you can look at. So this slate, a very, very fun one to play. Back to pitching. Yeah, this Silseth guy, Chase Silseth for the Angels. He's going to be the first player from the 2021 draft to make their MLB debut, coming straight from AA. And he was an 11th round pick out of college. So he wasn't, I mean, that's pretty low for the NFL or for the NBA. Third try, MLB draft. So I'm a little torn on that, right? Because you would think the talent level isn't that high if you weren't picked into the 11th round. But the fact that the Angels are skipping over their entire AAA rotation to go to this guy, he's been borderline dominant in the minor leagues. He looks like he throws strikes. I watched some tape on him. We're sitting, you're going to see him sitting 96, 97 with a fastball that can hit the zone, a good slider. And then he's got a split finger pitch, which these pitches, when they're on their game, can induce a lot of strikeouts. One of the guys that I like on this slate, I'm sure everybody does, Kevin Gausman, his big strikeout pitch, that swing and miss, is the split finger off of a good fastball. It basically mimics a fastball, dives below the bat, and you get strikeouts, especially for a team like the A's who haven't seen this kid before, limited tape on him. You could see him kind of springing a surprise on these guys and getting a lot of strikeouts. So you never know what to expect from a pitcher making their MLB debut, but Silseth, he's got everything you would want. Dominant minor league numbers. Clearly the organization believes in him. Got through 6 innings, 3 starts in a row at the minor league level, big ballpark, and a bad Oakland lineup, right? The matchup is good. So in terms of what you would look for a pitcher making their major league debut, he checks a lot of boxes. So I'm going to have exposure to him, no question about it. He is my favorite cheap guy. We've been talking about, like Jordan Lyles, you can go to down there, 5,400, just because of the matchup against that Detroit team that, I don't know, Hoop, I'm getting to the point where I almost pitch anybody against Detroit, right?
Yeah,
like,
no, it's the truth. And it's like, it's just funny listening to stuff in this area. Like if you turn on like sports talk or just anyone, from this area, such high hopes for the Tigers, like coming into the season. They thought this was the year they're going to shock everyone. And it's just like with some teams, it's just the same thing every year. I mean, Tigers were solid 10 years ago, but since it's been awful. And, they made some offseason moves and it just has not worked from an offensive standpoint. I mean, they are just dreadful at the plate. And, Jordan Lyles is a guy we like to pick on. But I'm going the other way. I think he'll be able to pick on the Tigers bats tonight. It's crazy.
Jordan Lyles is a below average major league pitcher, but he's been good enough to stick around as a major league starter for like a decade. And you get this matchup at 5,400 and he's going to give you 90 plus pitches. Like he'll probably be okay. Right.
Yeah.
Are the Tigers going to rough him up? Probably not. So you can probably get away with Lyles. I certainly prefer Silseth. I think he has way more upside, but I mean, you can play both. We were talking prior to the show, just a strategy thing. It really does seem like the dudes that are hitting home runs right now and hitting for power, they're hitting for power like every day or every other day, right? The Alvarez's, Judges, Trouts and Otanis. Whereas like the hitters that are stuck on 0 or 1 or 2 home runs, it's getting hard to believe that these guys are going to come through for you in most cases. So I do think it'll be a popular build to spend up at 2 starting pitchers today, because there's a lot of good ones, right? I expect good scores out of these guys and find cheaper bats, but man, the cheaper,
it's a very dynamic slate in the fact that, I mean, they're those big bats that you speak of are the ones that are in the best spots tonight. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
The Yankees are in a good spot. Like, they have Judge and Stanton who can hit the homers. The Houston's in a pretty good spot tonight. Got Alvarez in the middle of the lineup. So I think this is one of the more dynamic MLB slates that we've had in a while, where we have all this pitching, at the top end. We have the mid tier, we have the cheap, we have the offenses. It has everything. It's just, no matter what direction you want to go. And I think there's a lot of different directions you can go.
There absolutely is, and it makes her a fun slate.
Yeah.
I guess my point is,
anyone else under like 8K that you're interested in?
A lot of Silseth, honestly, is going to be the guy that I lean on. I mean, and then I'll play some Lyles too. I sort of actually will probably have more Lyles kind of with Silseth, and then just pick every single top bat that I think can go off for 20 plus fantasy points, because I like Silseth over Lyles. So, but I don't actually hate combining the two. I mean, I could see it where those two combine for, 25, 30 fantasy points. And even if like Scherzer and Gaussman, or Gaussman and Cole, or Free, I mean, there's a bunch of guys up top. Even if they combine for, 50 to 60 fantasy points, it's very possible the optimal build is 2 cheaper pitchers and all these stud bats.
Yeah.
So
I mean, going cheap at pitcher gets you obviously offense,
massive upgrades, right? Not just upgrades, not just upgrades that you can take, but upgrades that like you really do want to take at the hitting spot. So that's, I guess, an overview. Up top, I think it's close. I actually have Gaussman number 1. He's just been on fire. Tampa Bay, I think, has the highest or second highest strikeout percentage against right-handed pitchers over the course of the season.
Scratch from their lineup too.
Yandy Diaz, who was a good contact.
Yeah, that's not huge, but
yeah. But I mean, it is a slight bump to Gaussman for sure. I expect him to be awesome. It's hard to not expect Scherzer, right? I mean, a visiting Seattle team, he's at home. You got to think he's going to go off. Those are my favorite 2, but like Garrett Cole and Max Fried, and even to some extent, Logan Webb are not far behind them. I know Webb hasn't been quite as good, but good place to pitch in St. Louis, and a right-handed heavy lineup who he has dominated over the last couple of years. So he's in play too. So plenty of options at the top. I do think this is a slate for me where I'm mostly going to kind of mix it up a little bit at the top end range between, I rank them Gaussman 1, Scherzer 2, Fried 3, and Cole 4, but Webb 5, I think it's close between those guys. And then I'm happy to go down to a Silseth, a Lyles, maybe even both, frankly, if you want to get real weird. And then mostly skipping the mid-range, just because I feel good about the top end guys. And I really do think Cole Silseth has, not just a shot at a mediocre game, but a real shot at like a big game here, which is, those are the cheap starting pitchers that I'm most interested in, right? Where like even if the big guns go off, you at least have a chance where your cheap guy could match them, right? If he's truly on his game. Where sometimes you choose a cheap guy, it's like, oh, maybe I can survive with 10 fantasy points. Like Silseth, I think, has a legit shot to strike out, 8+ guys. Not saying that'll happen, but he at least has the arsenal and matchup to do so.
Yeah, I would love the play. JT, talk to me about any other cheaper guys that you're looking at, and then kind of go into that top tier as well and talking about the big dogs on the slate.
Yeah, the top tier, I agree with DC. I've got them flip-flopped. I've got Scherzer over Gaussman. Scherzer coming off of 2 tougher matchups against the Phillies, where his scoring was down a little bit. Now he gets a home matchup against Seattle, traveling across the country. Seattle been somewhat disappointing, especially over the last couple of weeks here. And with Tampa Bay throwing in, it looks like 5 lefties in that lineup. It's not a big downgrade for Gaussman, but his strikeout rate this season is only 16% to left-handed batters. So I would say for that reason, and you could argue that you could go Gaussman just simply because the ownership on Scherzer is going to be much higher. But I feel a little bit more confident with Scherzer in terms of an outlier performance here. So I'll go Scherzer over him. I don't know if I'm going to have much of Cole. I won't have any of Max Fried, I don't think, as of right now, although certainly a good matchup the way that the Padres have been swinging outside of Manny Machado against lefties over the last couple of weeks. One guy in the mid-range that I do like is Framber Valdez. He's been hit and miss this season, but when you turn this Nationals lineup around to primarily a right-handed lineup, they lose almost all of their power. They still don't strike out all that much, but I think Framber is one of the guys that can go deep. In 8,200 price point, I think he can do to them maybe even a little bit more than Taijuan Walker did to them yesterday, which get them to hit those weak ground balls, those weak pop-ups. And I think at that 8,200 price point, there's some cheaper bats here too that you can mix in that are not going to be popular at all on this slate, that have some pop, that have been hitting well. And I think if you go Scherzer or Gausman with Valdez, I think that's equally as good a build as going down to that level of Silseth or Lyles. And agree with you guys on the takes there. Detroit and Oakland just been the two worst offenses of many bad offenses that are on this slate.
Yeah.
Been just absolutely dreadful. I mean, it's been a very, very sad performances here by the Tigers. But yeah, I think we're kind of all in lockstep. I tend to go, Scherzer, Gausman. I'm playing on both DraftKings and FanDuel. The difference is quite a bit more on FanDuel. It's like $1,000 difference between Scherzer and Gausman. So probably have more of him over on FanDuel. The last name actually I wanted to talk about was Eduardo Rodriguez, 7.1K. Big strikeout upside, obviously, is K-prop is over 6. DC, any interest in Rodriguez for you?
He's a little bit of a blind spot for me. Has been for years. I rarely play him. So I'm probably not going there, but certainly on paper, right? You see the K-prop, the price point is good, low total for Baltimore, who hasn't been hitting either. So I certainly understand the play on paper. Frankly, should probably have more interest than I do. I think he'll get, he's kind of I wouldn't call him like a DFS darling, but he is a name that people, I think, do like to roster in general. I guess that maybe that's kind of why I'm off. And I think he's just over owned typically, but that was back in Boston. I mean, he was an 8 or 9K pitcher most of the time. Right. So I guess that was kind of the reason I fade him. Now you get him at a price discount. I certainly understand the play. I wouldn't talk anyone out of him. He probably won't be on many of my teams, but I certainly do understand that play on paper. He's a good one.
All right, let's head on over and talk some offense. We'll go position by position and hit on some stacks at the end. But man, we're struggling out of the gate here. About 300 watching, 70 likes, and
70.
It's hurtful. And my new thing is just to let the people. I put it in the hands of the people now. Get us to a good number. Where it's not going to piss me off at the end of the show. And if it's an acceptable number, then we get to the plays of the day. If not, we just call it a day, move on and put the plays into the Discord. So you guys know what we feel is an acceptable number, but I will say for sure 300 watching and 70 likes, JT, is not an acceptable number. The people might need a little pep talk, but I am going to warn, this is the only time we're talking about it on the show. Just get the likes to where they need to be. JT, anything to say to the people before we move on?
Well, my mood is brightened because as you were speaking, they went up from 70 to now over 100. I was going to be aggressive. I was going to match the amount of people watching here when you said that it was like, 60. That was disgusting.
Yeah.
But an immediate positive reaction from the chat. And I'm in a good mood. I'm in a good mood. So let's say 276 watching, 219. You get to 219 likes and you get the place. So it's what I like to say is it's a stretch goal.
I hope we get there because we've got a new segment we're debuting for the JT Hoop and DC shows, the Friday night dong draft, where we're going to pick home run hitters. We're going to throw in a couple wrinkles to it, and we're going to keep track all season long. Anytime the three of us are on a show, and see who ends up on the dong drafts when the MLB season is all said and done. That will be, I think, before the plays of the day, but I think also is subject to the likes getting there in the end. Otherwise, we could lose the DC Friday night dong draft. You don't want to lose that because me and Hoop and JT, we've been pretty good at picking these home runs on the show. So you might want to get the likes up for that.
Imagine not getting enough likes where you don't get to witness a dong draft on a Friday night, Eiffel Tower. I mean, it just all goes together. It'd be terrible mojo. So, I mean, we 219 is the number. I wrote it down here on my notepad, have it circled. Got to get there, folks, or there's no fun at the end. All right, let's talk some offense. We'll start at catcher, and like most slates, catcher is pretty weak. I mean, it's, we have a 13 game slate, so I thought maybe we get a couple more solid options, but it's a weak position overall. If you have the money, Salvador Perez is the name that stands out, batting third in Coors, against Freeland. Gary Sanchez batting fifth. The Twins are projected to score some runs. The total in that game has come up a little bit. After that, it gets pretty darn rough. We'll start with you, JT. Talk to me about this catcher position.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough with the Royals going to be over-owned because they're in Coors. Really difficult to get excited about their offense right now. In fact, it's downright fucking impossible to get excited about playing the Royals.
JJ, I think I swore off them a whole 2 days ago on this very show with the three of us. And then on yesterday's 3-game slate, I went back to them and they scored one run against.
Well, it was a 3-game slate. You didn't have a
choice. I had one of my own games last night, so I didn't play the night slate. It was disgusting anyway. And I got home at like 11. I'm having a beer, watching the Dodger Philly game, and I said, "Let me go see what the chords were."
Yeah,
I saw yours, and I'm like, "What? What?"
Luckily, it was a 3-game slate. I didn't have much action.
Not many choices. Yeah. You could certainly play Salvi. Although Salvi, listen, the numbers are ugly on him. I think a 175 batting average. He's been intermittent here. I actually, if this wasn't such a big slate with such great options down below, I would say Kyle Freeland isn't a bad option here with how bad the Royals have been and how good Freeland has been at home. The Royals, especially recently, WOBA numbers and ISO numbers, 086, 076. No, thank you. But I will start in the late game in the Dodger-Philly game. Walker Buehler getting a little bit of a earlier start here because Clayton Kershaw went on the IL. And the Phillies have been hot. They've been very hot. These guys have been hitting the ball very well. They've always given Buehler a pretty hard time. So real Muto, but more so Will Smith on the other side. Kyle Gibson has been decent, but this is a very tough matchup for any pitcher. And I just think that the Dodgers are going to get to him here. And we saw last night how terrible that bullpen is. Robinson Chirinos for the Orioles. We talked about Erod. I actually like some of these Orioles power bats. He's cheap, which is why I like him a little bit. Also been hitting the ball hard over the last couple of weeks. And then the Atlanta Braves. We didn't talk about Yu Darvish, but we should talk about Yu Darvish because over the last 2 seasons, he has a expected ERA on the road that's nearly 6 runs higher than when he pitches at home. He has been a disaster on the road, an 8 ERA on the road so far this season. We're not talking about good teams. He's gone to Arizona and been destroyed. He's gone to Miami and been destroyed. And some of these hard hit numbers, it's a little bit tougher to stack this Atlanta team when Acuna is missing. But Travis d'Arnaud hitting the ball very hard. DC and I talked about this on Wednesday night, the home run that he hit Tuesday night. Man, that ball just rocketed out of the stadium. So I'm going to like some of these Braves as one-offs. d'Arnaud is going to be one of them.
Before I throw it to DC, wanted to give a shout out to Tyler Martins in the YouTube chat. He said he's signing up for a monthly package right now. He said we have been spitting out winners day in and day out, and it's honestly been the truth. So thanks for signing up, Tyler. We appreciate that. DC, talk to me about these catchers.
I do think Salvador Perez rightfully number one. That'll be reflected in ownership, I'm sure. But, for all his struggles, the man still does have 5 home runs, which is like probably, as many as like half the catchers on this combined have. So I do think he's in play. Coors Field. Freeland doesn't miss bats. Salvador Perez has been really good against lefties over the last couple of years. So I do like him. I do like direct pivot to Wilson Contreras for the Cubs. I like picking on Zach Davies. Not any good. Contreras seems to have made some step forwards this year and quietly putting together a monster season for the Cubs. I assume he'll be in there in the middle of that Cubs order. And I assume if people are spending up, they're going to Perez, or maybe even in that same game across the diamond to Elias Diaz, right? But probably most people aren't going in between them to Wilson Contreras. So I do like that pivot from a game theory perspective. I think he's in a good spot. I like the d'Arnaud call. I've been on the Jonah Heim train, been banging the drum for him. I'll continue to do so. I think he is a legit threat. I do like him better swinging from the right side as a switch hitter, but Nick Pivetta can certainly give up his fair share of home runs. So Jonah Heim looks like a pretty good option to me. The cheaper end of catcher looks pretty rough. You know, obviously you can always punt it and just kind of include one of these guys in your stack. But interestingly, they've kind of raised the price on this slate on the cheap punt catchers, right? Like the Maldonados and Nitos and Hedges of the world. These guys are 3K now instead of 2K. That's a big difference. So it makes me less inclined to play those guys and maybe pay up for one of the more expensive guys, a Perez, Contreras, Heim, d'Arnaud, that I think has a reasonable chance to do some real damage. So I think mostly for me, partly because the catcher floor looks like it's $1,000 higher basically than it's been. I do like spending up here.
Yeah, it is annoying that they bumped those catchers. Like Maldonado had been like 2.1, 2.2K up to 2.9. Like they got them all close to 3K, and
they weren't doing a lot of 2K either.
No, they weren't. It's not like they were crushing it and then earned a price increase. They just did it, which is pretty darn annoying.
On their good day, they're getting like a walk and a run. So,
makes the position tougher to fill out.
Yeah.
Head to first base, and we got the Coors guys. Carlos Santana is 2.6K. Again, like Salvador Perez, he's probably going to be popular despite sucking all season long, but he's batting fourth in Coors, 2.6K, going to get some ownership. CJ Cron, much more expensive, 5.8K, but he'll get some ownership as well. Some other guys that I have interest in, I really like Anthony Rizzo here tonight, facing Velasquez, 5.4K. Freddie Freeman obviously has been good. I mean, that's a fair price tag for Freddie Freeman, 5K flat, like one of the best hitters in baseball. Definitely a guy that I'll be looking at tonight. And then, that's it actually that I wanted to mention. DC, toss it to you, first base.
Hard to ignore Carlos Santana's price. His first game back from the IL was an ankle injury that he had missed, I think, the minimum 10 days, which makes you think that he is fully healthy. And maybe has been fully healthy for a couple of days if they're coming back from a non-serious injury at the very minimum time. So if you need the savings, he makes a lot of sense. CJ Cron been crushing it. You have to like the Rockies tonight against Zach Greinke. I know the results have been okay, but you can't get any strikeouts. Well, he gets like one strikeout per game at Coors Field. That's usually not going to end very well, right? If you're getting balls in play in that park. CJ Cron, I think, obviously has a chance to do some real damage. Two guys he didn't mention, Shohei Ohtani all the way up top. Dalton Jeffries gives up a lot of fly balls, a lot of home runs, and I know he's pitching in Oakland, but for the guys that you want to roster for the Angels, Ohtani, Trout, Ward, Walsh, these guys got big boy power, especially Ohtani. So I'm not really worried about the Oakland ballpark specifically for him and Trout. I think he's a top option. And then I'll throw in Matt Olson. I love the point JT made about Yu Darvish. He took a big step back last year when they enforced the sticky stuff / spider tack ban. His numbers took a plummet in the second half of the year. And that's continued this year, where his strikeout rate way down from his career mark. He's always been a guy who has home run issues. And you get, in Atlanta, great place to hit. Lowell and Matt Olson. I know he hasn't had the greatest start to the season, but I see nothing there really concerning for me long term. So I wish Acuna was in there, but I still do like the Braves to be a sneaky stack to do some damage against Yu Darvish.
Yeah, not many people will be on the Braves. I mean, Yu Darvish is a name that people look at and classify him as an elite.
They just cross everyone off, even if they're not considering themselves. So.
Yeah, and even against him, you got the 2K outfielder back in the leadoff spot. So very interesting team tonight. I'm glad you brought that up. JT, what do you got here at first base?
Yeah, I'm going to start with a guy that's going under the radar, but he's in the top 10 in expected isolated power so far this year, which means he's gotten a little bit unlucky It's a great matchup against Drew Smiley in Arizona, second highest game total on the slate. Christian Walker, just 3.7. Absolutely love him in this matchup. I like Freddie Freeman quite a bit here. That 5K price point is a nice discount against Gibson, who gives up a lot of hard contact to left-handed batters. I like Olsen. I love the Angels in this matchup against Dalton Jeffries, but when you show me a team that you've got to pay half your salary to roster, it's likely we can maybe pick out one of these guys, and Ohtani would be fine to do that with, but you get the same production for a lower price. So those are guys that are going to be predominantly the guys that I am rostering here. One other name, because it looks like finally Marco Gonzalez is actually dust. And Pete Alonso at 5.2K, don't love this ballpark, but 94% humidity. Marco Gonzalez gives up, what was the number? 2.84 home runs per 9 innings. Someone from the Mets is going to hit a home run tonight.
Yeah, I love that call. Actually, really good call.
Yeah.
I like the Mets in general today. I don't know. I think they have a chance to maybe go a little overlap. I mean, 13.
There's a team that seems to put up runs every game.
Yeah, and it's like a 13-game slate, and you have Coors on it. So I think like outside of that spot, you just really don't need to be all that worried about like ownership on a side note. But let's go to second base, and position is not super strong. I mean, there's not a ton that stands out. I think you do see some ownership with a guy like Whit Merrifield, again, leading off in Coors. Relatively fair price tag 4.4, but you know the risk that you're running into with these Royals bats. I mean, they've been atrocious all season long. Brendan Rodgers is a guy that'll probably get some ownership too at 3.7. I really like Jorge Polanco, just a fair price tag for a guy with some decent upside at 4.3. And then Max Muncy, kind of sticking with that Dodgers trend. Fair price tag on him, 4.2. So I think you can get out of this position, with a guy at a fair, with a few guys with fair price tags and a lot of upside. So I do like this low 4K range here and upper 3K range at the second base position. JT, I'll go to you. What are your thoughts here at second?
Yeah, like you said, kind of a weak position. I'll stay with that Arizona theme and looking at Ketel Marte. You do have Lux as well in the bottom of that Dodger lineup. There's some speculation that maybe Muncy is nursing some type of injury, just the way he's swinging and just not having that success. You're right. 4.2 is a great discount on him if in fact he's fully healthy, but a little bit of a weaker position here for sure tonight.
Yep. DC, what do you got at second?
Yeah, I've been talking about Max Muncy and a lot of the stuff I look at, one of the most unlucky hitters in baseball so far. He is coming off he missed the playoffs last year because he had basically the injury that causes pitchers to get Tommy John surgery. He's not a pitcher; he doesn't need to throw that much, so they just rehabbed it. But the longer he goes, even when the underlying metrics look good without producing, my confidence starts to wane a little bit. But I'm still there for now, so I do like Max Muncy. I'm with you guys on the other guys, kind of in that mid 4K range. I think is mostly where I'm looking here. I'm torn on the Royals. Like, I just want to kind of be done with this team, but like, man, on paper, I love the matchup against Freeland. We saw Merrifield finally have a good game a couple of games ago, hit his first home run. Historically hits lefties well, sprays line drives all over the field, which is exactly what you want in Coors Field. He's leading off, he's inexpensive. So I'm going to have some Whit Merrifield, but you can make the case too. A pretty unproductive player to be able to fade when he's been as bad as he has been. So I'm torn on that. I do like Jorge Polanco and the Twins in general against Aaron Savali, a pitcher I don't really believe in. And then I think the Diamondbacks are a little sneaky. JT mentioned Christian Walker. I like Ketel Marte, switch hitter. I'll take a stack against Drew Smiley. Ketel Marte coming in there at 4,500. But yeah, a weak position and kind of like catcher. DraftKings kind of pulled the rug a little bit here on the cheap guys at second base, because I'm not seeing anybody in the starting lineup below right now. 3,100 is the cheapest guy that I'm seeing in there. So, it looks like this is going to be the case at most positions where there's not really many options below 3K. And when that's the case, that means the few options that are that cheap are going to be heavily owned, right? For the pitcher, for the people that go with 2 stud pitchers. Like when there's a whole bunch of them, then you can kind of do that, and your cheap guy will be, the ownership will be spread out down there. But when there's only a couple of them, then you get everyone piling on the same cheap dudes, which, given how unproductive most of these cheap dudes have been this year, makes you wonder a little bit if cheap pitching could be a route to the top tonight.
Yep. Third base, we do have some cheap options. Brad Miller leading off 2.6K. Emmanuel Rivera batting 7th for the Royals, 2.3K. So a position, really the first one where I have a couple really cheap options. You can also play Max Muncy here at 4.2, which I like. Ryan McMahon is batting 4th for the Rockies tonight, 4.5K. I think that's a fair price tag for him. I think Devers is a really solid tournament option. I just don't think many people are going to go all the way up to Devers at 5.8K. So he's a guy I'll be looking at. Bobby Witt Jr. It's batting 6, 4.4K. Batting 6 might keep his ownership down a little bit. And then another just, cheap option in part of a really shitty Tigers lineup. Candelario is batting 4th at 3.6K. So I think we do have some options all over the place here, all over the pricing spectrum. Stick with you, DC. Thoughts here at third base?
Yeah, Bobby Witt's done me dirty this year, but hard not to like him. I'll stick with him maybe for one more day against Freeland. Muncy, obviously, as we mentioned, I think if you want to spend here, you certainly can, but I think most of these guys will be fairly low owned. I mean, who's going to be the highest owned expensive third baseman?
I don't think many people will go all the way up to like Devers. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I think probably McMahon. McMahon will probably be highly owned. Probably if you're not punting, I think McMahon gets a lot of ownership.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do think if you spend on one of these upper tier third basemen, you're going to get them super low owned. One, I just don't think many people are going to do that at all. And two, I can't even for sure tell you which one of those super highly priced third basemen will be the most popular among them. So that means they're all going to be very, very low, because even among those expensive third baseman, pricing is going to be spread out. So I think that's a little bit interesting, at least from a game theory perspective. Moncada came back from the IL, homered immediately for the White Sox. Kind of like him a little bit as a super low owned guy against Garrett Cole. Just kind of that one-off. Cole does give up home runs. Moncada's got the power, so he's interesting if you're going off the board. Brad Miller, I mean, he just seems to come through whenever he's in these good spots leading off. He's got what did he hit, his 5th home run? Yeah, 5th home run.
He really does, man. I mean, I swear he does it just nonstop.
It's like for a 2,600 dude. Like, I feel like when he comes up, I'm like, he's probably going to hit me a home run. That's just like how I feel right now about Brad Miller, because he's been coming through. So why go away from something that's working for you? So he'll be popular for sure, but I really do like him in that cheaper range.
JT, what are your thoughts here at third base?
Yeah, focusing outside of Coors, Justin Turner in the 6 hole at 4K. Looks like he's finally started to hit the ball. And I like these Dodgers here tonight, especially against Gibson and particularly that Philly bullpen. Josh Rojas, 3.7 in the 7 hole. Probably going to get him at 2% ownership here in a very good matchup against the starting pitcher. You look at this Braves game once again, Austin Riley. Machado 6-1. It's a little bit high for a one-off, but to DC's point, he's probably going to be almost unowned here. You guys talked about Miller. Devers, you can always try Devers against a right-handed pitcher there. And then, outside of that, not a lot here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of options, but none of them stand out as like, this is the guy options. There's cheap guys, there's mid-tier guys, there's expensive guys, but they're all just kind of like okay plays. And kind of the same can be said for shortstop. Actually, shortstop might be worse than any of them now that I just pulled this up, and we just don't have many solid options at shortstop. If you want to go all the way up to the top, Trey Turner 5.2. I think that's a very fair price tag for Trey Turner. I kind of like him. And then Francisco Lindor 5K, fine option. I mean, I like the Mets. I think they have success today. If the Mets have success, Lindor is a guy that can always get it done. Corey Seager, at 4.8, a little bit cheaper if you want to go that route. And then, Javier Baez is coming in at 4.2K. If you think that the Tigers finally get it going this season, which they haven't at all. So that's kind of asking for a lot. And then, in terms of the cheap plays, not seeing much. Jorge Mateo's batting second for the Orioles against Eduardo Rodriguez. He's 2.8K. So maybe there's your cheap guy. Or Willie Castro is 2.6K. So I think punting this position is certainly in the conversation. I mean, the spends I just don't think are slam dunk plays by any means. JT, what do you think here at shortstop?
Yeah, I'll probably have a lot of Mateo. I'm not going to be stacking the Orioles by any means, but I do think you can play some of these guys as one-offs. And Mateo has been absolutely on fire. He now gets a matchup with, and look, it's not just that Eduardo Rodriguez is going to be over-owned here. I think the public and even the books here with that high K-prop. I mean, we saw this with Steven Matz yesterday. He got to 20 points, right? And I think Erod can get you there, but he also gave up a couple of solo bombs, another run outside of that. His team couldn't score any runs. I think you can see very similar outcome tonight where Erod gets you that 16 to 20 points, but it's not enough because you didn't go all the way down or you don't have the points that maybe you can get out of a Valdez. And some of these guys hit bombs against him. So Mateo is one of those guys that I'm going to have quite a bit of. If you're going to go against a guy who's going to be highly owned, who can give up home runs, I mean, Tim Anderson leading off at 4.9 if you want to go back to the White Sox there. And then, yeah, I'll definitely have some shots on Lindor and Dansby Swanson, who started to hit. He's in the 9-hole though, but that Padres bullpen over the last couple of weeks, 10th worst in baseball as well. So if they can get to Darvish early, could be a night where if you don't have some Braves, it's going to be a long one.
Yep. DC, what do you got here at shortstop?
Yeah, like you guys mentioned, it's pretty ugly at the top. I think most of my lineups I'll be spending down here, right? We talked about what catcher didn't really have any good cheap options. I think second base didn't either, but some decent ones here at least. And they're more attractive because the top end isn't that great. My two favorite guys in the top end at shortstop are Francisco Lindor, Corey Seager. I think you guys mentioned them both. Of course, you can play Trey Turner. Any of the top end shortstops you can reasonably play, but you're not that excited about most of these guys. So it does seem like you lose a little bit less going down to the cheap guys. You guys mentioned Jorge Mateo. He is my favorite down there. Couple home runs in the year. He's got 9 steals already, hitting second. Fine enough matchup against Rodriguez, who does walk guys. So you could see Mateo, get on base via the walk and get off to the races that way. So I like him. He's number 1. Royce Lewis hitting 9th for the Twins, but I do like the Twins a bit. Aaron Savali doesn't scare me. Royce Lewis, former number 1 overall pick, hasn't produced too much through 3 or 4 games here, but hasn't been overmatched either. Strikeout rate's fine. I think he's going to hit a little bit for the Twins. So 2,300 for him. And then, yeah, Willie Castro, the third guy down there, 2,600. I do rank them Mateo, Lewis, Castro, but I have no problem with any of those guys. They're cheap. I don't think any of them are going to get pinch hit for. And the top end doesn't look that great. So I do think this is a good position to go cheap at. And man, the top end's not great, but the mid range for this position I think is especially ugly. So I kind of see going all the way up top or punting it entirely.
Yeah, really just nothing in the middle. I mean, you really don't have much of a choice. I mean, you either go all the way up, I think, or all the way down here. It's, to me, like it's the nastiest position outside of catcher for sure. Yep. One position that's not nasty though is the outfield, and there are just so many good outfield options today. I mean, it is endless. It seems like all the best hitters on the slate are in the outfield. We have the Astros guys, Alvarez and Tucker batting 4 or 5, both very solid options. We have the Yankees bats, Judge, Stanton, even Gallo as a tournament option. Byron Buxton clearly in play. We have Jonathan Daza batting leadoff for the Rockies at 2.7K. He's definitely going to be very popular tonight because of that price tag. We have the Angels guys, Trout and Ohtani. We have the Dodgers guys as well. It's just a loaded position. I believe you can play Brad Miller in the outfield as well. He's 2.6K. the options are endless in the outfield. I mean, if you're, the one thing I will say is you're going to need a big score from these outfielders. Don't play a singles guy. Like maybe Daza is a great fade because, I mean, what are the chances that Daza really goes out there and puts up like 25 fantasy points? It's not likely. You're going to need a big score in the outfield. I would be focusing on the high upside guys for sure. DC, how do we parse out this outfield position here?
Yeah, 100% agree with you. I think this, because you have 3 times the options in the outfield than you do at the other positions for the most part, you do have more cheap guys, right? There's plenty of guys that you can play in decent spots that are below 3K, unlike the other positions, with a lot of good top priced arms on this slate. I do think you'll see a lot of people go cheap in the outfield, and I understand it. I think it's a viable strategy. But like you mentioned, the highest upside bats are in the outfield, and these guys are coming through, it seems like, on a nightly basis. So, and because there's so many of them, like you're telling me, like you mentioned, Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, Ohtani, Trout, Buxton, Judge, Stanton, the Coors guys, right? You can go on. It seems likely that there's going to be 2 or 3 of those guys that have big games, and it might be hard to match those at the cheaper outfielders, I think. So I do want to spend here if possible. Of course, if you're spending up for pitching, it's not entirely doable, but I certainly want to go there. A couple mid-range guys that I am looking at. Max Kepler, swinging a pretty good bat for Minnesota. He's 3,600 hitting cleanup. I do like the Twins a little bit in general. You can go all the way down to the bottom. I think my favorite, filling in at the leadoff hole for the injured, or I guess he should be back tomorrow, I think, Ronald Acuna, but out tonight, Travis Demeritte, who has looked pretty good, JT, I think, for the Braves, kind of secured that everyday role for them with the Eddie Rosario injury. And listen, the Braves have plenty of options. They don't have to hit this guy lead off, right? They've obviously got some faith in him to perform. If they're moving him up all the way to the leadoff spot, they could have easily put an Ozzy Albies there and, kept Demeritte at the back of the lineup. Yeah. So that increases my confidence in him a little bit. And because he's going up against Yu Darvish, I think he'll be maybe lower owned than he should be, but I don't think he's really much of a pinch hit risk. I think he's got actually a decent chance to steal bases in this matchup, especially hitting leadoff. And he's shown a little bit of power too. So yeah, Demeritte, I think, is the best punt if you're going there. Frankly, I kind of like him straight up over Jonathan Daza, and the ownership gap between those two, I assume, will be significant.
Massive.
So
it's going to be big. It will certainly be big. There's no doubt about it. And I don't know, this guy is showing steal upside. He's showing power. I know one of his home runs was inside the ballpark, but that's fine with me. I'll take it. He's, I think, definitely a better option. The gap in ownership is going to be massive, in my opinion.
Yeah. So just from a strategy standpoint, he does seem like the better play overall.
All right, JT, talk to me about the outfield. Obviously, tons of options here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll start with the Dodgers. Mookie Betts, always prefer him against right-handed pitching. And, again, the theme here, that Philly bullpen. Cody Bellinger hit a home run last night and been a much different player so far this year. This guy, all he does is hit home runs against left-handed pitching. Jordan Luplow batting second, 4.1K for the Diamondbacks, a team I like a little bit here tonight. Moving up the list here, you guys talked about the Yankees, the Twins, the White Sox. Franmil Reyes only 3.3K. I know Sonny Gray has been okay, but I think 3.3K is too cheap for a guy going up against Sonny Gray, who's had issues with right-handed power. DC mentioned Travis Demeritte. I think he's a great play. But my favorite outfielder in that lineup is Marcell Ozuna. I've watched his bats last couple of games. He's about to get hot. And when Ozuna gets hot, he gets streaky. Yeah. So I think Ozuna is a really good play here tonight. And then on the Mets, don't mind Marte or Mark Canha. Mark Canha has been on fire. Again, gets a matchup now against Marco Gonzalez, 3.2K. I think these Mets are going to be completely unowned. It looks like we're finally at a point where Coors is going to get that big ownership. And just remind everyone, it's the first night in Coors. Historically, last couple of seasons, these have been lower scoring nights. Could change tonight, but if you're thinking about fading, I think there's a lot of reasons to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you have one offense that sucked all season, obviously, in the Royals, and if you go to projection sites, they do stand out as the plays. I mean, they're getting the Coors bump. They don't have the extreme Coors price tags that we've seen in the past. So I think for sure Royals are going to be popular, and it's a plant that you can kind of a flag that you can kind of plant there and just be off them. You're immediately getting a ton of leverage. I think it's certainly interesting in tournaments. So let's go see. Oh man, like we said, what, 219? I mean, you got like literally a minute to get this up to the 219, because I do want to go through and do the what's it called, DC? The dong
draft.
Let's address. We'll give the people some time to hit the lights. I want to address something here in chat because he's usually has some decent takes, but Sean V tonight is just spamming us about Erod getting excited, motivated to play the Orioles. He has good numbers against the Orioles. The Orioles have sucked for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Any pitcher who's pitched against the Orioles has good numbers against them. Whatever. That's fine. Marcana hit for no power, though. He hit a home run yesterday. So, we'll see what happens. But Sean, come on, man. You're killing me.
I'm a little high. I'm good with Erod just because of the price tag. Like he's cheap. He's 7.1.
He's okay. He's okay. I can see both sides there. I could see playing some Erod if you wanted to. I could also see taking someone else. Same situation with Mats yesterday.
Yeah. All right. You guys are going to get the likes. We're sitting at 216. We said 219, but I have confidence you'll get us 3 more likes to get to the 219. We're going to the Dong Draft. DC, take it away.
The Dong Draft. We're going 3 rounds here. We're picking home run hitters, and you get a point for every home run, right? So if you pick a guy that hits 2 of them, you get both of those home runs to your season total. We'll declare a winner for tonight, but we'll also keep a running total, and we'll come some sort of prize and maybe a punishment for the last base finisher.
Yeah, we definitely have to come up with something to keep this.
The rules are all subject to change. I'm all about making some more intricate rules as we go along, but we'll start off simple on the first one. 3-round snake draft, and you do get double the points for each home run if you pick a guy below 3K salary.
Ooh,
so
I
think potentially we could even include multipliers for low owned guys in the future. We can talk about that going forward, but we'll keep it simple for today.
Sounds like it's getting confusing with rules can change at any time. What is this? What level of Jumanji is this? I mean, come on.
We're being innovative in the space.
I love it.
But at least for today, we'll go 3 rounds, snake draft, and you do get double points if you pick a below 3K guy in your lineup. Hoop, host of this show, we'll let you go first. JT second. I'll go third. Third and fourth picks will go the traditional snake draft. I'll record them here, and next time we're on the air, we'll go over the results and we'll go from there. So Hoop, your first pick in the inaugural Friday night Dong Draft.
I almost drafted a guy that is not in the lineup, so that wouldn't have been good. For some reason, Anthony Rizzo not in the lineup tonight, so that was going to be my pick. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to my Mets, man. I like the Mets tonight. Pete Alonso.
All right. We got Pete Alonso on the board. First ever pick in the Dong Draft. JT, you're on the clock. Pick 2.
I mean, that's hurtful. I bring up Alonso. He likes Alonso. He steals Alonso as the
part of the game. Part of the game.
He wasn't going to get back to him with the 6.
You better be cautious what you talk about on the show from now on.
Let's go with my guy, Marcell Ozuna.
Marcell Ozuna, first round pick. All right, I didn't see it coming off you, Darvish, but I like the pick. I'm going with Shohei Ohtani. I think the Angels are putting some in the seats against Dalton Jeffrey. So I'm going Ohtani. And you know what? I'll stick in the same game right next to him, Mike Trout.
Yeah,
my 2 picks. Back to you, JT, for your second round pick.
I'm going off the board. I'm trying to get the low on points. Christian Walker.
Okay. Got Christian Walker, JT in round 2. Hoop, you got 2 picks here, round 2 and 3 picks.
So you said under 3K is double points, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Give me Brad Miller. I'll go for the bonus.
That's a good pick. Brad Miller times 2. And your third round pick?
Third pick is going to be I'm gonna go more conventional. I think with the third round pick. I'm gonna go. Give me CJ Cron.
CJ Cron. All right. Your final pick, JT.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great night for me. Jorge Mateo.
That's a bonus, right?
I get a bonus.
That's bonus points, yeah.
And I can't be the only guy not picking a double multiplier here. So I'll go back to that shortstop position, go to my Twins, and go with Royce Lewis ×2.
This is too easy for us, DC. This is too easy.
Too easy. Hopefully, we'll get at least one home run amongst
the
9 picks.
That would be a real downer if we go.
If we don't have any home runs, we're going to rearrange the schedule so we never are back on air all three together, and we don't have to revisit the results. But I bet we'll get a couple dongs out of these guys in the initial dong draft. So there you go. Final picks. We've got Hoop with Pete Alonso, Brad Miller ×2, and CJ Cron. JT has Marcell Ozuna, Christian Walker, Jorge Mateo ×2. I've got Ohtani, Trout, and Royce Lewis ×2.
×2, love it. So the inaugural dong draft, we'll be doing this every Friday night on the shows here, and we're going to keep track, and we're going to come up with a way to make this more competitive, because we're gamblers by nature, and I guarantee you we're not doing this for fun. Something will be on the line here.
We should take some input from the chat. They should have a way to give us some of their ideas about in the chat.
Idea. Okay, here's one thing that just popped in my head, which I think would be the punishment potentially. Now let me know what you guys think.
Whatever. This is going to end up with DC doing something embarrassing to himself. I know that's going to be.
Whoever loses is it's going to have to be someone embarrassing. Actually, producer Helmet could help us with this because here it is. So it's called the dong draft, right? So the ongoing little not joke in our family, but the wives went on this bachelor party. And I believe it was Helmet's wife that bought this dong bong. So it's a beer bong and it's just a huge fucking crank at the bottom, a huge wiener. So you got to bong the beer out of the penis. So that could be the potential loot, right? You like that?
I do like that.
Bong a beer.
Wait a second. You got to do something that's like something that someone doesn't do every day. I mean, come on.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
Have a punishment for DC.
How's that a punishment? Yeah, that's a good point.
I actually have 3 penis beer bongs just in the fire. So. I was gonna do it as soon as we got off air.
He's going to nozzle one as soon as he gets out.
Oh, you mean you guys don't do that every day after every show?
I wake up out of bed and I hit the penis beer bong. That's how I usually start my Friday.
Oh, so good. So the game will evolve. There will be, we'll come to some terms here on, the prizes, punishments. It looks like some of the punishments could also be prizes. Who knows where this goes? All right, let's get to the plays of the day. I will go first with the rich parents play of the day, and I'm gonna go a little off the wall today. I'm feeling a little spicy. I'm gonna go with a guy who actually really didn't even mention him at all. But I'm going to the Rangers. I'm gonna go with my guy Cole Calhoun, super cheap, batting 5th. Basically free on both sites. Cole Calhoun gets the job done for us tonight. So it's usually not my style to go that far off the wall, but that's what we're doing here Friday night. Next, we'll go to DC with the infamous Mom's Basement play of the day. Who do you got for us?
I'm going to stick with the pitcher today. I think Mr. Silself, Chase Silself for the Angels, gets it done at 5,500. I like what I've seen from him, both from the minor league numbers and minor league video. He's cheap, great matchup, stretched out, and allows you to get some of these potential dongs into your lineup. So Cole Silself, or Chase Silself, rather.
All right, so we got another recommendation for a punishment, but again, I think this is one of these punishments that's not really a punishment. Mike says loser has to wrestle Big Bertha one-on-one. DC, is that really a punishment?
Do I get to shotgun 12 White Claws beforehand?
With the penis bong. There you go. So you got to do the dong bong,
okay, and
then wrestle Bertha. Now we're getting somewhere, folks. We're making progress.
Things can get out of hand quickly in this scenario, but yeah, I'm never going to say no.
All right. How we close out every Friday night, we head on, what do we call it? Air France, and we're going over to Paris for the Eiffel Tower play of the day. JT, who do you got for us?
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit. I think this is the benefit that some of us believe there is of actually watching these games, taking a look at what hitters are doing. And I just have that feeling from watching the at-bats, really close the last couple of games. Marcell Ozuna is about to get real hot. He's not only going to hit a home run, he's going to do it in his first at-bat. You're going to see Yu Darvish put his head down and start pouting because he's going to be thinking, shit, I'm on the road. I'm about to get my ass kicked again. And then Ozuna is going to do it again against the bullpen. Marcell Ozuna, Eiffel Tower play of the day.
Love it. Great way to end the show. It was a good show, guys. I mean, the first ever dong draft, the plays of the day, spot on. So looking forward to keeping you guys updated on the results of the dong draft. And like DC said, hope to God we don't go 0 for 9 on these picks. I mean, at least a couple of these guys hit some bombs for us. That'd be a real bust to open up the dong draft with no homers. So
maybe we shouldn't have taken Mateo and Royce Lewis.
But I think hey, Mateo's going to do it. Mateo, I think we should have a tracker on the website. We should definitely have a tracker on the website.
Yeah, we do have to keep track of all this. We'll find a way to make it more, easier to follow. We'll come up with something for sure. So that is going to do it for this Friday night show. For DC, for JT, I'm Hoop. Good luck tonight in your contest.